The semiconductor chip is at the heart of a modern electronic devices and equipments. The chip of the matter that yet a considerable for an electronic device heart, and that's are not enough chip in the world to meet the skyrocketing demand. The rapid digitalization during this pandemic that has led to a massive rise in demand for a semiconductor chip and the commercial semiconductor fabrication. This operation is almost non-existent in the country. There are two operational fabrication in one is Sitar in Bengaluru and Semiconductor Laboratory in Chandigarh, and both build those silicon chip for the strategic purposes such as defense and space. An analog fab is expected to be established in MP. This led to the shortage of critical third-party components that are needed to manufacture the chips, and the restriction on movement also hit the complex manufacturing process. Even assembly, testing, marking and packing those operations that are small scale with some important offerings that full-fledged services will be given. And while India is an integral part of the design component of the semiconductor ecosystem, it has practically no chip manufacturing capabilities. Also, since most design firms are captive centers of global companies, the IP is not registered in the Indian territory, so does not translate into revenues. It is a gaping hole that the government is trying to fill with a scheme to promote those domestic manufacturing. The focus is not just on making a chips, but also its components so that it's benefit the entire domestic electronics manufacturing industry. The support has been steadfast, and the recent 76,000 crore package that will transform and leapfrog the India's electronics and semiconductor industry and will catalyze the investment, entrepreneurship and job creation. The firms such as Intel, Samsung and Micron are known as integrated device manufacturers, as they both design and for the most part manufactures those chip segment. On the other hand, Nvidia, Qualcomm, AMD based MediaTek only design those chips. These called fabless companies that outsource the production to contract the manufacturers. The top manufacturers including TSMC as name as Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company and China's Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporations. These manufacturers first turn those silicon powder into wafers and then dozens of transistors that are printed onto these wafers and connected by the copper wires to convert them into those memory chips, microprocessors, and complex systems on a chip services. These processes could involve anywhere between 300 and 700 steps. India's plan for the commercial fabrication, there have been a multiple failed attempt to set up those commercial fabrication facilities in the country. Hindustan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation, along with microelectronics, the industry's complexity runs beyond a globally diversified ecosystem to include a wave of rivalries and corporations between the companies, and IDM, Intel, all is a designer and foundry, meaning full that it could be producing those chips for the rivals. The government of India has approved the 76,000 crore for the development of semiconductors and the display manufacturing ecosystem in India to extend the policy support up to 50% of the project cost to execute highly capital intensive and resource incentive project for the semiconductor fabs and display. The extended policy support of 30% to approve the unit of compound semiconductor and a silicon photonics and the sensors, including those for the semiconductor units, and the design linked incentive scheme, the incentive up to 50% of eligible expenditure, and the product deployment linked incentive of 4 to 6% on net sales for the 5 years, and to train 85,000 engineers for the semiconductor ecosystem. The underlying strain is that each company is looking to diversify its supply chain. The need for that has become more pronounced during that past couple of years, and the semiconductor mission for a country to drive its long-term strategy for developing and sustainable semiconductor and display ecosystem. The automakers realize the importance of semiconductor industries, and during this period of lockdown last year, the sales would hit badly and reduce the order for the chip. And on the other hand, given the demand for the smartphones, computers, and other consumer electronics, the spare production the biggest challenge in increasing the production capacity is the huge investment, especially when making new clean rooms. The shortage of semiconductors to the Tier 1 and Tier 2 suppliers that have affected the country that is now aspiring to be an electronics hub in the electronics global value chain, which is in India, is also now faced a growing global concern about the concentration of semiconductors in certain geographies that may or may not be resilient over the medium terms or a long term. And there is an added reason that rationale for India to explore the semiconductor opportunities in the context of electronics opportunity growth and the semiconductor sovereignty, security, as well as the product categories like electric vehicles. From a conceptualizing to actual production, it can take anything between 15 and 18 months. For other less complex chips, it takes around 8 to 12 months for the final product. The India's role in the global chip ecosystem has been limited to chip design. India is a semiconductor design powerhouse due to its excellent engineering talent, and the return on investment in terms of the design work is very good, and India's ambition lies further down the ecosystem to be a part of the manufacturing process. The first need to sow the seeds of a longer term vision to attract the investors. So you do not get billions of dollars if you do not give the investor the long term policy views, and also you can start building the surrounding ecosystem for the metal, chemicals, minerals used in semiconductor manufacturing first, as well as to set up the assembly, testing, and packaging facilities to develop them to a maturity level in next 2-3 years. The scheme is designed to strengthen the entire ecosystem and the electronics manufacturing in the country, and offering the policy of 50% of project cost based on this eligible application with the technology and capacity to execute the highly capital incentive and the resource incentive project. And to strengthen the ecosystem, the incentive of 50% for the eligible expenditure is also needed for the industry to. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.